What if I told you that the defending Super Bowl champs are kicking off the season without their #1 wide receiver? That's right. Just days before the NFL opener in Brazil, the Kansas City Chiefs got hit with a massive curveball. Rashee Rice is out. Not because of an injury, not because of a contract holdout, but because the league just slapped him with a 6-game suspension. Rice was supposed to be Patrick Mahomes' go-to weapon this year, the guy ready to take that next leap after breaking out in 2024. Instead, the Chiefs now have to figure out how to survive the first 6 weeks without the player who was expected to stretch defenses, move the chains, and take pressure off Travis Kelce. This isn't just another roster move. It's a storyline that shakes up the entire AFC picture. Think about it. Mahomes has proven he can win with anyone, but 6 games without your top wideout? That's a real test. So, what exactly happened with Rice, and how does this change the Chiefs' game plan heading into the season? Let's break it all down. The 6-game suspension didn't just come out of nowhere. It all traces back to a dangerous moment off the field last year. In March 2024, Rashee Rice was involved in a high-speed crash on a Dallas highway. Multiple cars were damaged, several people were injured, and Rice initially left the scene before later turning himself in. The legal fallout was serious: probation, community service, and heavy fines. While he managed to avoid jail time, the NFL reviewed the case under its personal conduct policy, and the result was this 6-game ban. Originally, many league insiders thought Rice might face closer to 10 or even 12 games. That's how severe the situation was. But after cooperating with investigators, accepting responsibility, and reaching a settlement, the NFL and the NFLPA agreed to cut it down to 6. It's still a huge hit, but it could have been much worse. The suspension starts immediately with the Chiefs' international opener in São Paulo, Brazil, and runs through Week 6. That means Rice won't see the field again until Kansas City's Week 7 matchup against the Raiders. In the meantime, he also loses 6 weeks of pay, reportedly costing him over $600,000 in salary. For the Chiefs, it's a frustrating blow. They built much of their offseason plan around Rice being the featured receiver opposite Travis Kelce. Now, just days before kickoff, Andy Reid and Mahomes have to pivot. And if you think the impact is only about the first 6 games, think again, because losing a WR1 changes the entire rhythm of an offense. And that's exactly what we need to talk about next. When you take Rashee Rice out of the lineup, the ripple effect is massive. Last season, Rice emerged as the clear #1 option in Kansas City's receiving corps. He hauled in 79 catches for over 1,000 yards and became Mahomes' most reliable wideout down the stretch of their Super Bowl run. Losing. That kind of production isn't something you just patch up overnight. Let's look at the schedule he's missing. Week 1? The opener in Brazil against Justin Herbert and the Chargers. Week 2, a Super Bowl rematch with the Philadelphia Eagles. Then comes the Giants, the always tough Ravens, Trevor Lawrence's Jaguars, and finally the Lions. That's 6 games against some serious competition. If Kansas City stumbles early, it could cost them playoff seeding down the line. So, who steps up? The Chiefs didn't sit idle this offseason. They brought in Marquise Hollywood Brown, a veteran deep threat who can stretch the field. They drafted Xavier Worthy in the first round, a blazing fast rookie who brings Tyreek Hill vibes every time he lines up. And don't forget Juju Smith-Schuster, back with the squad and looking to prove he can still be a reliable possession receiver. And of course, there's Travis Kelce. At age 35, he's still Mahomes' ultimate security blanket. Without Rice, Kelce's target share is almost guaranteed to spike, but that also makes the offense more predictable. Defenses will key on Kelce even more heavily, daring the other wideouts to beat them. The Chiefs even made the unusual decision to keep 8 wide receivers on the 53-man roster, a clear sign they knew this suspension was coming. That depth will be tested right away. If Hollywood Brown can deliver consistency and worthy flashes early, Mahomes might still find ways to spread the ball and keep defenses off balance. But let's be real. Replacing Rice isn't just about stats. It's about chemistry. He had built timing with Mahomes, he knew the system, and he was ready to be the guy. Now Kansas City has to improvise, and while the Chiefs are scrambling to adjust on the field, fantasy football managers are scrambling off it, because Rice's absence just flipped draft boards upside down. If you're into fantasy football, Rashee Rice's suspension just threw a major wrench into your draft board. Heading into this season, Rice was climbing into that WR2 range in a lot of leagues, especially in PPR formats. He had the upside of being Mahomes' top target outside of Travis Kelce, but now he's basically undraftable as an early option and slips down to a late-round stash. 6 weeks on the sideline is just too much for most managers to hold unless you've got a deep bench, but one man's loss is another man's gain. And in Kansas City, there are 3 names fantasy managers need to circle. First, Marquise Hollywood Brown. He's the veteran with speed to burn, and he's had stretches of WR1 production back in Arizona and Baltimore. With Rice gone, Brown immediately steps into a lead role and could be Mahomes' primary deep ball guy. Then there's Xavier Worthy, the rookie burner out of Texas. He shattered the 40-yard dash record at the Combine, and Andy Reid knows exactly how to design plays for a guy with that kind of speed. Wouldn't be a shock if Worthy had a welcome to the league moment in the first month that shoots his fantasy value way up. Juju Smith-Schuster is the forgotten man, but he could quietly eat up targets in the short to intermediate game. He's not flashy, but if you're looking for a reliable wide receiver 3 or flex, Juju might sneak into that role while defenses are focused on Kelce and Brown. And speaking of Travis Kelce, if you drafted him, you're grinning. At 35, he's still Mahomes' safety valve. Rice's absence guarantees even more volume his way, making him almost cheat code level in fantasy. From a strategy standpoint, the Chiefs' offense might actually become more unpredictable. Without a true WR1, Mahomes could spread the ball around even more, forcing defenses to play honest. It's not ideal, but it could keep Kansas City dangerous until Rice comes back. The moment the suspension became official, the NFL world lit up. Chiefs fans had been bracing for some kind of punishment ever since the Dallas incident, but 6 games still felt like a gut punch. On Reddit, one of the top comments summed it up perfectly. Finally, now let's start the season already. That mix of frustration and relief pretty much captures the mood, angry to lose Rice, but glad the uncertainty is over. Local Kansas City media described it as a storm we all knew was coming, pointing out that the team prepared for this day by stacking the receiver room with extra depth. Analysts across ESPN and CBS agreed. If there's any quarterback who can survive losing his WR1, it's Patrick Mahomes. Still, nobody pretends it won't sting. Some fans are even spinning it positively. They note that Rice has been nursing a minor LCL issue, so 6 weeks off might actually give him time to fully heal. By the time he returns in Week 7 against the Raiders, he could be fresher and healthier than ever. But critics argue it leaves the Chiefs in a dangerous spot early. The AFC is loaded this year. Slip up against teams like the Eagles or Ravens, and you're suddenly fighting uphill for playoff seeding. So while the official reaction is a mix of disappointment and optimism, one thing is clear. This storyline just added a new layer of drama to Kansas City's season. At the end of the day, Rashee Rice's 6-game suspension is more than just a headline. It's a turning point. The Chiefs enter 2025 as defending champs, but now they've got to defend their crown without the wideout who was supposed to be Mahomes' top weapon. That forces Andy Reid's squad to dig deep, get creative, and prove, once again, that this dynasty isn't built on one player. The early schedule won't be easy, and fans know every game counts in a loaded AFC. But if Hollywood Brown, Xavier Worthy, and Travis Kelce step up, Kansas City could weather the storm and come out even stronger when Rice returns in Week 7. Imagine getting your WR1 back right in the middle of the full season. That could feel like a trade deadline blockbuster without giving up a single pick. Of course, Rice still has to earn back trust. On and off the field, All eyes will be on how he responds when he's eligible again. Will he stay disciplined and become the true WR1 the Chiefs envisioned, or will this suspension be a setback that lingers? One thing's for sure, the story of Kansas City's season just got a whole lot more interesting. Rashee Rice's 6-game ban might feel like a big deal, but he's far from the first wide receiver to face a costly suspension. In fact, history shows us how these situations can completely change the trajectory of both players and teams. Take DeAndre Hopkins in 2022. The star receiver for the Arizona Cardinals was suspended 6 games for violating the league's PED policy. Arizona started the season without him, went just 2-4 in that stretch, and never fully recovered. By the time Hopkins came back, the team had already lost its rhythm, and they ended up missing the playoffs. That's a reminder of how missing your WR1 early can snowball into a disappointing year. Then there's Josh Gordon, whose career became defined by suspensions. From 2013 through the late 2010s, Gordon was one of the most talented receivers in the league, but repeated violations of the NFL's substance abuse policy kept him sidelined for years. His situation shows the extreme, the kind of lost potential that teams fear when off-field issues stack up. Even the Chiefs themselves have been here before. Back in 2019, Tyreek Hill faced the possibility of a long suspension due to off-field investigations. Although he ultimately avoided it, the looming threat had Kansas City scrambling for backup plans, similar to what they're doing now with Rice. The pattern is clear. Losing a top receiver, even temporarily, can derail an offense. But the difference between success and failure often comes down to the quarterback and the system around him. The Cardinals didn't have a Mahomes. The Browns didn't have Andy Reid. The Chiefs do. That's why, despite the echoes of history, Kansas City might just be the rare team that can absorb a suspension like this and still look like favorites in the AFC.